Do people, Joe, want to be paying what will soon be, what is it, 173 quid a year for this guy, this major presenter on the BBC, which is supposed to be impartial, being incredibly impartial? Don't forget, Joe, these rules that the incoming chairman has quite clearly stated Gary Lineker has broken, and I agree with Samir Shah, he has broken the rules, were created specifically for Gary after he compared the Tories' migrant policies to the Nazis in the 1930s. They created these rules to clear up the confusion after that, and yet here we are again. So I would suggest that licence fee payers and other members of the BBC staff would like to see Gary Lineker, if not sacked, severely disciplined. If not, what is the point of the state broadcaster if they can't do anything about people like Lineker who can't stop embarrassing it?
Well, good afternoon, both. Thank you very much for having me on. I think you're absolutely right, Kevin. I mean, we know Gary Lineker is in receipt of over £1.3 million of licence fee payers' money every single year. And he seems insistent on making a mockery of these rules, which, as you said, were basically created to placate him in the first place. So I think if he can't abide by these very simple and quite generous rules, actually, to basically not harass politicians on Twitter and act in a civilised way, then, what on earth is the point? And I think if they don't make a very public display now of chastising Lineker over these actions, then what hope is there for the BBC going forward?
Is it your opinion that when things like this emerge, when you have these sort of headlines of impartiality rows, that this actually makes more and more people turn away from the BBC and say, I'm not prepared to pay for it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we know the BBC is facing existential problems as things stand. I mean, the whole licence fee model is completely out of date. The government's own white papers basically state the same thing. And I think when they see these increasing rows over impartiality and this sense that you have this sort of media class which is disconnected and that people are forced to pay for through the licence fee, I think it does build up this sort of sense of resentment because, not only is Gary Lineker mocking the BBC when he goes against these rules, he's making a mockery of licence fee payers who are forced to pay this fee every single year. And it can't be allowed to continue.
Agreed. Surely, Lineker has to go, and if they replace him on Match of the Day, you heard it here first, there'll be no impact on the ratings. It will get the same audience, if not more. When they suspended him over the Nazi row, the viewing figures actually went up. They were significantly higher than when he was there. So whoever they replace him with, it won't cause them any problems. Do you think, Joe, I sense Gary Lineker just doesn't care anymore. He's enjoying taunting the BBC because it turns him into a left-wing hero. Aren't I wonderful? That's what I think this is all about. And he doesn't care if he gets sacked because he makes a fortune from Walker's Crisps and his podcast company, and he'd probably get offered a job somewhere else anyway.
Well, I think all you have to do is look at that footage of Tim Davie walking out of the headquarters earlier and you can just see how terrified he is. I think the whole institution is terrified of Gary Lineker after that very embarrassing climb down that we saw happen earlier this year. But I think what you said there, Kevin, is quite important. I mean, why on earth is the BBC paying millions of pounds to these star presenters in the first place anyway? I think this really calls into question the BBC's fundamental problem in which it sort of continues to try and meddle in the commercial market using licence fee payers' money to do so. I mean, after all, shouldn't the BBC be used as a place to sort of bring up young talent, maybe pay them a bit less than, the huge salaries we see on the bigger channels? Get some younger people in, train them up and sort of invest in the future of broadcasting as they claim to do instead of bolstering the pockets of these huge presenters on huge salaries.
Yeah, it's hardly value for money, is it? Thank you ever so much, Joe.